Greetings, I am Tom Earl. On this week's episode, we talk failure, success, and finding your purpose with Kyle Dendy. Check it out.
Hey, you don't want to miss this one, guys.
Greetings, I am Tom Earl, and this is my year of grace. We know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you are here today, sharing your greatest gifts, your time and energy means the world to me. I hope you know that in this moment, just as you are appreciated, you are valued, and you are loved. As you can see, I'm not alone. I have an amazing guest. He goes by the name of Kyle Dendy. How's it going today, Kyle?
Hey, it's a great day to be alive, right?
Well said. Do you mind if I introduce you to the people out there via your bio?
Let's do it. Go ahead.
21-year-old Kyle Dendy is a speaker, entrepreneur, and author of the Purpose Playbook. He has reached millions with his message of finding and following God's purpose for your life. Through his videos and online education platform, the Academy of Purpose, he helps countless people become all God created them to be. He has spoken over 100 times, and he recently spoke at Sunday service with Kanye. That's amazing. You're doing great stuff out there.
I appreciate it, man. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for taking the time to interview me, and I'm excited to see what comes out of this conversation.
It's my pleasure. So I always start the interview by saying that you can't ever really capture fully who a person is in their bio.
Yes.
So if you really knew me, we would know that what?
If you really knew me, you would know that at the end of the day, I'm a people person. So I have the opportunity to share on stages in front of different crowds of people, different types of people, but nothing do I love more than sitting down with somebody one-on-one, whether it's friends, family, or somebody I'm just meeting, and getting to know that person. I love to find what makes a person come alive. One of my favorite quotes is by Howard Thurman. And he said, ask not what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. And I think everybody has that answer, but oftentimes they don't realize it because it's in the back of their head, and they often mask it with the answers that are safe, the answers that they give to people when they ask, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? What do you want to become? And I try to dig deeper and find out what that thing is that makes them come alive, that thing that as they talk about it, their eyes begin to light up, and draw that out of them.
How did you discover what makes you come alive?
So that's a great question. So for the longest time, I thought it was sports. I grew up in Texas. I am in Texas right now. And sports here are very big, especially football. And I wanted to play sports in college, but in 2014, I had two surgeries. I had a knee surgery, I had an ankle surgery. And so all my aspirations to play sports in college at that point kind of fell to the ground just like that. But while I was recovering from that second surgery, I knew for the longest time that I wanted to write a book. But like most people do, I always made the excuses of I don't have time to write a book, or I don't have, the expertise or the connections to write a book. But I finally just dared myself, what if I actually did it? And so laying in bed, recovering from surgery, I just started writing and writing and writing. And so I wrote my first little book called The Vision. At that same time, I had this recording mic in my room, and I had it because in 8th grade, my brother and I wanted to be rappers. And so we would record stuff and put it on YouTube. And for whatever reason, I had this mic around me, and I just plugged it in, hit record, and just started sharing my heart as I closed my eyes. And it was these words of inspiration and motivation. And I would post it on SoundCloud, share it on Facebook, and people really liked it. And I really liked it. And I knew it was something that I was passionate about and something that I wanted to do. And so I just started calling myself a motivational speaker. I didn't have anywhere to do it at the start, but that's the route that I went down. And I started doing a lot of speaking and preaching and writing for the next, I guess it would have been 5, 6 some years leading up to now. And over time, I just fell more and more in love with it. But I think a lot of times people like me, they have something that they think makes them come alive more than anything else, when really there's something that will make that happen for them even more. They just haven't discovered it yet. And so we got to be willing to try new things and be willing to fail and be willing to look like a beginner at something if you ever want to be the master at it.
Where did you find that courage to, there's an aspect of vulnerability to sports, but going from sports to closing your eyes and just letting, God pour through you and putting that on the internet, where did you find the courage to be that vulnerable?
It's funny because I was always a shy kid growing up. I was quiet, I was shy, but I really felt that God wanted me to speak. And I really can't explain where I got, I guess, the courage to do so. I I guess I've been quiet, but I don't think I really am affected um, in extreme amounts by the opinions of others. And I think even more than that, I felt like what I had to share, looking back, it was kind of cringy. It wasn't even that good. But I felt like what I had to share was stronger than the what ifs of if they judge me, if they don't like it, if they that. I knew I had something inside of me that needed to be to the world in the world. So it wasn't even a thought of what are people going to think. It was, this has to get out there. And I think that's a switch that people need to make. But I don't think you can really make that unless you really feel that what you're doing is what you're called to do. And that's something that I was very confident in, even though I was at the beginning stages of it. Like, we're talking days into even just calling myself a speaker. But I really thought I had something to share. And I think out of the 7.4 billion people in this world, somebody needs your message and somebody will listen. And we have the internet today, which I'm sure we'll get to in our conversation about social media and just how the barriers to entry in creativity, in entrepreneurship, they're not there anymore. There's not middlemen that you have to go through if you want to bring your story to the world, if you want to bring your business to the world. It's just you that's often stopping you. But I think that's one of the most beautiful things. Now, of course, it means that everybody can do it, so there's more competition. But if you're willing to stick it out, it's like I heard someone say before, try to tell me one person you know who has done one thing consistently for the last 10 years and hasn't seen any success in it. But the problem is that oftentimes we don't give it time. And we plant a seed and we dig it up the next day wondering if it's a tree. But it takes a long time for to see success. But you got to be so in love with the process and the journey that, it's not just about the mountaintop, but it's about the climb.
How can someone start to find that thing where they love the process so much that it's no longer a means to an end, but just doing it in and of itself is that joy?
I think you have to try new things. If you haven't found it yet, I think more often than not, it's that you haven't tried enough things. Somebody said, like, you could be the greatest architect to ever live. You just haven't tried it yet. And so I couldn't have known that I was into speaking if all my time was spent on sports. And so whoever you are, I think we all have, like, in the back of our mind, a list of things that we would like to try. And maybe we don't tell them to people because it doesn't sound as normal or cool as the next person's thing, but try it. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work. But what if it does? Or what if you fall in love with it? And today, like, you can monetize anything. So don't let that be the reason that you don't try something new. So I think the short answer is that you need to try more things. If you haven't found the thing that you love to do, you need to try more things. And the problem too is, like, we're taught in school to kind of just focus on the few things that they lay out before us. But there's a lot of things that aren't taught in school and that aren't presented rather in school. But you have the opportunity, if you're in school, from 8 o'clock in the morning to 3, you still have a lot of hours. If you work from 9 to 5, you still have a lot of hours to figure out what that thing is for you.
That's powerful. So I'm going to ask you a question, and totally feel free to pass on it. For a lot of young men of color, our systems and our school and media really only present, like, here's a few options that you can select from. What would be your message to any young men of color listening right now who, are drawing inspiration from the way that you found your own route that maybe is outside of what they're hearing people say is a route to success for them?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, like, men of color, like, and especially in certain, depending on where you're from, it often seems like the way out is music or sports, or something like that. But I think one thing that I really want to do is be an example, because I think if, a young person who's from Chicago, all they see is people either, doing drugs or becoming rappers or sports people, then that's all the options they think they have. So it's all perception. But somebody said the mind of man, once stretched by a new idea, it never returns back to its original dimensions. So I think part of my responsibility, and not just explicitly to be like, I just speak to people of color and I want you to do this, but just to operate with excellence and to operate and everything that I do to try to do it at a high level and a level understanding that there's people of all races looking up to me, but especially Black kids that are like, wait a minute, what if I did business? Wait a minute, what if I did speaking? Wait a minute, what if the things I've experienced I used as my story to bring hope to other people? So I think for others who are kind of on that fence of, am I going to rise up to a higher standard of excellence? Do it. My family is from Chicago. I didn't grow up in Chicago. I grew up in a suburb of Dallas, Texas. But for the kid watching this who is in Chicago and is kind of on the verge of deciding what route he's going to take, you've got a lot of kids looking up to you that are going to do as you do, that are going to talk like you talk, that are going to try to be like you be. And so I would say we have a responsibility to be the example and show that there's more options, not just by talking about it, but by actually pioneering those paths.
That's powerful. I appreciate you speaking on that. How did you start getting into speaking?
Yeah. So like I told you, I just called myself a motivational speaker. No gigs, no opportunities, no anything. I made a big list of like 100. I just got a list of like everybody in the area that I thought might need a speaker. And I probably emailed like 100 of them and like one responded. But I tell people like one is sometimes all that you need. And so I expected it to be this big business event. It was the Grapevine Lions Club. I expected it to be this big business event. Everybody's going to have a suit on. It's going to be like networking. I'm going to speak. It's going to be powerful. I showed up in a suit. I showed up. There was one person there. He was mopping the floor. He had no idea who I was or what I was talking about, what I was doing. It was very awkward. But he was like, okay, I guess you can come in. And then a couple more people showed up. And one person was the person who actually invited me to come speak. Then probably 3 more people. And these were all like very, very, very old people. And I was just so thrown off. I was like, it was not what I expected. And I kind of just wanted to get it over with. But I felt God put in my heart, like, why would you take an opportunity like this lightly just because it's small? Because I think oftentimes we think, oh, I'll do it better if it's bigger, when really, the way you do some things is the way you do all things. And the way you do, I think, small things too is often the way you do big things. And so I was like, you know what, I'm not going to waste this opportunity. And I got up there in front of those like 8 old people and I said, hello there, my name is Kyle Dendy. I'm a 17-year-old motivational speaker. And today I'm going to teach you how to master your past. And I shared my story and I gave it the same amount of boldness and energy that I would give if I was speaking on a stage in New York City in front of 2,000, 3,000 people. And I think as I just gave small opportunities everything I had, things really started to grow. And that's what I would encourage people with, whether they're trying to be a speaker, whether they're trying to do anything. Stop, like the Bible says, don't despise the days of small beginnings. Stop treating small things like they're not important. Because if you treat those like they're not important, it could have been one person in that room who could have done something incredible with the message that you had, but you blew it off, or you didn't even show up, or you said, I only do speaking gigs if they're big and if they're paid. And then you're never going to get there because you didn't realize that the big was in the little. So how I got started in speaking, I just called myself a speaker and was like, I will do that till I get opportunities. And that led to more and more. And with social media and some other invites, and I had the chance to be on television, but all that came, like sometimes people look at one big thing and they're like, oh, well, you got this big break. But it's like every big thing that happened in my life stemmed from just doing a lot of small things that a lot of people aren't willing to do. So that's my answer on how I got started.
That's such a powerful story.
Yeah.
Especially if you've been there before, where you're like, oh, like this is, I've been in situations like that.
Yes. And you expect this big thing and it's like, but you always have an opportunity to treat it big or treat it small. And I say, if you have a small thing, treat it big.
So since then, you've spoken over 100 times.
I've spoken a lot. I've spoken a lot. This last summer, I probably spoke 30 times.
Do you have any others? You're a really good storyteller. Do you have any other speaking stories that stick out to you? Let's do it.
All right. So my first time, one of my first times, so my high school, we got a speech class my junior or senior year. I think it was junior year. And we had to do like a speech, and I asked my teacher if I could do a sermon, if I could preach. And so this would be my first time doing that. And this was a small class. There was 4 people in the room, and I can't even make this stuff up. Like right before I started, the little intercom went off in the room, and one of the 4 people in the room had to go home because the nurse called him because he was sick or something like that. So it's like it was already small, and then it got smaller. It went from like 4 to 3. So I mean, that was like this. It was another one of those like, man, like how small can this really get? I've flown across the country and spoken in a little back room church to 5 people. I've saved up money from my book sales and rented out a theater in my city and invited everybody I knew. Had a lot of people there, packed out a theater and spoke. Tried to do it again a couple months later, and the turnout was not there. But I didn't stop, and I just kept going and going and going. And people started to see what I was up to and be touched by it, and they started inviting me places. And some of those were bigger, and some of those were smaller. But to this day, I don't turn down small opportunities just because they're small. Like if there's a scheduling conflict or another reason, that's one thing. But like it's crazy how many people I talk to who really don't have like any gigs, or they don't have the amount of gigs that they want, but they won't do small things, or they won't do free things. And it's not just about experience, it's the people that you'll meet. It's all these kind of things. Um, and again, the big is in the little. That's the stuff that will lead to the bigger things. And so that's what I would encourage anybody with. And it's anything, it's business. We were just talking before this call. I have a business called Speaker Secrets, and we have, in the last few weeks, almost 800 people sign up for the program. But this wasn't my first rodeo, like doing this. Like I've had so many things that didn't work, and like similar stuff, courses that flopped, and clothing lines and books that didn't work, and all this stuff. But I always learned from I don't even like calling them failures, because I think it's just something that didn't necessarily work. But I just learned from it. And then the next time I tried something, I took all the lessons and I did it. And it's like building blocks, like Legos. And the next time, okay, we're going to build off of that. And I'm by no means where I'm going to be, not just wanting to be but where I'm going to be. But it's all this journey of learning from the last thing, trying not to make the same mistakes twice, but understanding you're going to make mistakes, but being okay with that and just getting better and better every time. So that's speaking, that's business, that's anything.
One of the first things I realized in our short time together is that whether we call them failures or not, that you have like that really strong growth mindset, that you don't let them knock you down or slow you down. But for a lot of people, that it's hard. Like you really envision this big thing, or you put all this time into a course or a project, you launch it, or you rent the theater and nobody shows up, and it can be devastating.
Yes.
What is your advice or encouragement or message for people who are in that?
Wonderful question. And the answer to that question is a 1-word answer, and it's why. It's why did you start in the first place? Because if you started because you want the thrill of having 1,000 people in the crowd, then you're not going to be speaking, or you're not going to be doing whatever when that's not there. If you start X, Y, and Z because you just need, you need to pay your bills, you start a business just to do that. If you don't see the money right away, you're going to say, this doesn't work, and you're going to go to the next thing. So I felt God asked me a question when I first started, and that was, would you do it if it's a small thing? And my answer was yes, because my why wasn't money, my why wasn't followers, and my why wasn't any of that stuff. That stuff came when I followed purpose. But my why was, I believed that this is what I was born to do. I lost my father at 5 years old to suicide, and I didn't share my story for 11 years. But after sharing my story for the first time and seeing how it impacted people, the same story that I didn't share because I thought it wouldn't impact people, they would just judge me. Once I saw the impact that it had on others, there was no going back. Like I've had people message me at 3:00 in the morning and say that their wife and kids just left them. They were going through a divorce. They were about to take their life. And at 3:00 in the morning, they got on Facebook, saw my video, and decided not to do it. Like when you have that sort of stuff happen, it's no longer about some of the things that used to seem big. Some of the big things seem small, and some of the small things start to seem big. So yes, I will tell everybody on this journey, if you're just starting something new, you will fail. It's probably not going to work the first time. But why are you doing it? If it's just so that it will work the first time and so that you can be an overnight success, then you should just save yourself, whatever money, time, whatever, and don't start at all. But if your why is bigger than that, and if your why is impact, then if you really want to impact 1 million people, like your brand story says, then you got to understand that 1 million starts with one. And you got to understand that having 1 million followers because you want to have a lot of impact and speak to 1 million people, but you have 1,000 and you're not speaking to them. That doesn't really add up. One of my favorite quotes, actually, it is my favorite quote. Somebody said to Aristotle, they said, "How do I get to Mount Olympus?" And Aristotle responded and he said, "You get to Mount Olympus by simply ensuring that every single step that you take is toward Mount Olympus." And a lot of times we take 1 or 2 steps in that direction, then we get sidetracked by, a brighter opportunity. The grass looks greener on the other side, when really it's greener where you water it, or it's greener where the grass isn't real. And so we see on social media people who seem to be doing things fast when you don't see everything it took them to do so. But as long as you're comparing yourself to somebody else's highlight reel, you will quit every time because you will think that what you're doing isn't working. When sometimes the fact that it's not happening fast doesn't mean that it's not working. It means that it is working. Because when you plant a seed in the ground, there is nothing in the world you can do to, in an extreme way, speed up the process of that seed becoming a tree. You can't, you can't pour, you probably mess it up if you pour too much water on it. You probably mess it up if you put some bright heat lamp on it. It's time. And a lot of people in this fast-paced society, that is what they lack. There's a rapper named Russ, and he has a line that says, "A lot of rappers go broke because they got rich too soon. A lot of people are dope. They just quit too soon." And it's that if you've got it, now if you don't got, some people trying to be singers and they can't sing, but if you've got it and you believe that you've got it, then it's time. It's time. It's consistency and it's quality, and that it's time, and you'll get there. So that's what I would encourage people with. But yeah, expect to fail, but don't take the definition that society has put on failure away. Like we say failure in school, if you don't get past, if you get an F, if you fail, then you're not going to the next grade, then you're behind, then you lose per se. In sports, you win or you lose. When failure, all it is it's a learning process. It's the opportunity to find out what didn't work so you can get on to what does work.
Yes. I'm loving it. I love the quotes you're bringing in, but we're also pulling out a lot of your quotes. Like, ooh,
yes,
nice cow quote.
Yeah, of course, I love it.
So one question for you is, and I've heard people bring this up. So earlier we had talked about try new things, experiment, find the things you're passionate about. Then people are trying new things and they're feeling like, oh gosh, I'm a quitter. I don't see things through. Like, am I going after the grass is greener on the other side? Like, how do you find this balance between like finding that thing you're passionate about and like knowing that, am I quitting because I want to genuinely try something new or because it's getting hard? Like, you know what I'm talking about? This like,
no, that's a great question. And you're asking like the most perfect questions and right in line with my book and everything I talk about. A lot of people, because this is the problem that we have in our society a lot. A lot of people say that when you want to find your purpose, just find your passion. The problem, for example, is that when I went to my freshman year of college, I signed up for gospel choir because I like gospel music, kind of passionate about it. The only problem that I found out very quickly is that I can't sing. And so that's a problem to join something that I was passionate about, but not gifted at. And so, yes, it is important to, first of all, to try things that you do have like a natural gift at, that God has like naturally given you, not just an interest in, but something that comes naturally to you that perhaps is more difficult to somebody else. So I think that's a very important piece of the puzzle, because otherwise what a lot of people do is they're not chasing, because we got to clarify when I say try new things, that it's not just try anything, because a lot of people are just chasing things like it. Instagram ads are crazy these days, Facebook ads. So you get a new opportunity popping up in your feed literally every 5 seconds. And so it's not that I mean, today I'm going to try investing. Today I'm going to be a real estate person. Today I'm going to be, today I'm going to be an author. Today I'm going to be a speaker. Today I'm going to do this. People who are chasing everything, they never have enough water on any one seed to see any one seed grow. And so, I mean, I say, and I don't want to say like, okay, it's 2 weeks, it's 30 days that you try something, but you got to give it enough time to actually see if it's something that can potentially work. But then you have to give yourself an honest assessment. Like, is this, like, it doesn't matter if I took every singing lesson from the greatest singing coaches of all time. I'm not going to sing like John Legend or Beyonce, because they also, in addition to those things, have gifts that they've, started with. And so it takes an honest assessment that can sometimes be brutally honest. And a lot of our friends and family won't tell us those brutally honest things. So you got to have people in your life who are willing to say, yo, like, I really don't think you're good at this. And they got to be the right people, because some people say things like that because they're jealous, or just, who do you think that you are doing this? But that comes back to a whole nother conversation about like who's in your circle and who's around you, because that is one of the determining factors of where you're trying to go. Like if 5 of your closest friends every single night are out partying and drinking and don't have any goals, then I don't even have to know a person to know that they're probably the sixth one. And so I think back to the question, in trying new things, try things that you're gifted at, try things that there's an interest in because you are gifted at it. And you got to be realistic about the time that it takes to get somewhere. Because a lot of people are selling, do this tomorrow. So they're selling, become a millionaire tomorrow. And so people are desperately gasping for, this is my break. But any get rich, anything, get something quick, anything is only going to leave you, you didn't go through the process to develop the strength to actually be able to even maintain that if you did get it, but to get it in the first place. So like back to the question, just you got to give things time, but then you have to give yourself an honest assessment. That's the best advice that I would give. But also being willing to look bad at something. Don't quit just because you're at the beginning stages. Like Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team. But you got to decide, like, how much are you willing to put in? And is this something that you see yourself like giving an extended amount of time to?
Yeah, I appreciate that. When you were talking through it, it allowed me to see in a different light too. And one thing that came to mind for me is that what you were saying, that honest self-assessment of like, what's the intention? Am I leaving this because of I'm being pushed by an insecurity? That like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I thought I was going to win. Now I'm not. Or is it genuine curiosity?
Yes.
I just wrote that down real quick. I was like,
No, that's exactly it. So
I always like sharing the story of how I met my guests. So I was going for a walk and was scrolling through my Facebook and saw your ad for your speakers bureau. And so I checked it out. I was like, wow, this is a really good offer. This is a super cool program. I liked what you're doing. I run Facebook ads for a living. So I was like taking note on how good it was. And I'm like, I want to get to know this person. So like I always do, I DM them and say, will you do an interview? You said yes.
Yeah.
So tell us about the and I apologize, I'm getting the name wrong, the speakers program that you do.
Yeah. So, I mean, because I've always been very interested, first and foremost, of like Facebook ads, and like, I've studied it and like tried stuff, but never really gone all in until like really this time. So I have like programs from some of the top people in it that I've learned and studied. So it was cool to put everything together and to see it actually work. So I have a speakers program where basically I bring these people in, and there's two parts to it. The first part is a course. So it's an online course where I help beginners, mainly new and aspiring speakers, to land their first speaking engagement. So they come in and I show them how to kind of take their message, craft it into like a booking script, how to find some available speaking engagement opportunities, how to actually get in contact with them, and that process. So we're about to actually add to it to take it to another level, to just offer people even more methods and ways that they can get started. Then what I just started is I have a team of people who's actually working to kind of book speaking engagements for people. So I have clients that are coming in, paying us, and then we're actually going to be placing them in different places. So that part of it, unlike a course, is more like a bureau. And so this is brand new, but it's very exciting stuff that I'm very happy about.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's almost like an agency. Like
It is. Yeah, it is.
Almost signing, people are paying you and you get them booked. I love it.
And it's cool because, I mean, all about like SMMA. And so like it's cool because it's essentially what we're doing with that, but instead of SMMA for speakers. So instead of us landing you, more leads and more clients for your business, it's more gigs because every speaker needs speaking gigs.
So take me on the back end, because a lot of people don't get to see how things evolve. Like, I know this venture is going to do really well. So almost as a time capsule, people looking back, how did you reflect and analyze and realize like, oh, this is how this program needs to evolve? Can you kind of get a little nitty gritty with us on it?
Yeah. So a couple of things. Okay. So this is going to be really practical stuff for people that are in entrepreneurship. People want things simple. Like your offer needs to be simple. Your messaging needs to be simple. And I say that to say, I had a program that was all about becoming an author. It's called Book Launch on Demand. And inside of this big program of all these videos that I spent like 3-4 months making, there was one video on speaking engagements. And I knew it was gold, but it was mixed into all these videos. And let's say we had 30 students max get into that book launch program. Somebody was DMing me and saying, how do I get more speaking engagements, things like that. And I was like, what if I took this one video and made it its own program? Because we had like 30 people inside this book launch when I was like, I don't feel like it's getting the respect that it deserves. What if we made it its own course? And so I did that. And 3 weeks later, almost 800 people were inside of it. And I say that to say, like, when you have a lot going on, sometimes as creatives, we think that people want our creativity and stuff like that. They don't. They want a result. And you have to clearly put that in the messaging. So then I made this a course. And I told you that in about 3 weeks, we did, about 800 students. And so there were some days where we were doing like 50, 60, 70 enrollments in a day. But the first day I didn't sell anything, like zero. And at first I was like, man, like maybe this isn't for me. Back to what we were talking about. When really, sometimes it's not that it's not for you. It's that you just didn't do it right. You literally like didn't do it well enough for it to work. And sometimes we're like, oh, this just isn't for me. Facebook ads don't work. But the problem I had was I had this super cool, creative way that people could watch the video, take a code from the video and put it into this thing. Then it's going to pop up and they can like join. And it was complex and nobody joined it. But when I made it super duper simple, everybody joined it. And so that's some encouragement that I would offer. I hope I was getting to the question about like the details of it, but yeah, we're definitely going to add to the course. And I've learned so much about another thing about anybody who's interested in Facebook ads and things like that. My best advice is that you can take every course in the world and watch every YouTube video, but until you actually run them, everything is theory. And somebody was saying, oftentimes we have a problem with theory and practice because we think that they're the same thing, because in theory and practice are the same, but in practice they're not. And so, especially when it comes to your ad copy, your ad creative, it's not about what looks cool in your head. It's about what you test. And this is any marketing, what you test and what actually works for your target audience. And so I don't think that's what I really understood for a while, because I thought this looks cool to me, or I like this ad, or I like this image. When really you should be testing things and finding what actually works. And when you actually look down to data and you just follow the data when it comes to marketing, you're going to find a lot more success.
Well said. I love the advice and the background and how day one it didn't work.
It didn't
and you
work.
fine-tuned it. Boom, 800 people signed up. It's amazing.
It did not work the first day at all.
What about, because a lot of people, success can be the kiss of death. So how did you transition though from now we have these 800 people, here's how we're going to evolve, here's how we're going to fine tune. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So there's a lot of problems with success, but I want to first answer that with growth, but specifically fast growth. Like, it's cool to say like 800 in 3 weeks, but like I was a one-man show. And so I was, support emails, and I had a business phone number on there. So support text messages and my stuff, people not getting their access link when they when they signed up, and they're like upset and they're like wanting a refund when half the time they had a typo in their email, so it didn't send to the right place. And so like dealing with that and dealing with some other things around that was like, it's now it's about cleaning up some messes, but it's also learning from it. Because even in success per se, he enrolled this amount of people in this amount of days. There's still things that didn't go right that now I have to clean up. But it's like I could never learn that just by not launching my first ads and just being like closing my eyes and being like, this is how it's going to work, how it's going to play out. These people are going to join. Because in our heads, theory and practice are the same, and in reality, they're not. In reality, it doesn't go as smoothly. In reality, people sign up and join, and for whatever reason in the world, they don't get the access email. And that's just like little things, but dealing with everything like that. And so now, I mean, I've been told forever, like, Kyle, if you want to do bigger things, you got to build a team. Kyle, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. But I really struggled with delegation, with trusting other people with my dream, with my baby. And so, but I'm learning that it's impossible to go as far as I'm trying to go alone. Because even if you worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you didn't have to sleep, you didn't have to eat, you didn't have to drink any water, you didn't have to go to the bathroom, all that stuff. If you worked endlessly, you're still only one person. So you can still only do so much. So if you have other people that aren't working 24/7, but they have 4 people doing it, they will run circles around you and you can't work 24 hours a day. So you're still only one person. And so I've heard it before, and I said it a second ago, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, go with the team. And so I have some people that I'm bringing on. I actually have a meeting with them in a couple hours from the time we're recording this call. But I'm like, I want to scale this thing, and I'm a visionary. And so sometimes your creativity as a visionary can get crippled when you are crippled by support emails and, working in your business instead of on it. So one, if I empower other people to do things, then I can work on the business, we can grow it. I think it was John Maxwell who said, if somebody can do what you do 80% as good as you, hire them to do it. And oftentimes we're like, well, I can do it better, but you're still one person. And if you are the visionary, the brains of it, you are going to help the company the most if you are working on it, not in it. So that's my best advice. And I'm talking about advice that I'm learning as we speak. Because again, you can't learn this stuff. And I'm in college right now. I'm in an online business program, and the stuff that I'm learning there, it's all theory. Whereas as it's happening in real life, it's like, okay, in time we will have to have somebody whose job is support. I will need somebody to do this, to do that. There's things that I can do, but I shouldn't do because it's not the best use of my time. So I need to bring somebody else on.
What does your, and first of all, thank you for all of that. That was gold. What does your personal development process, journey, practice, ritual look like? Because you got a lot of quotes, you got a lot of info. Like, how do you systematize that to make sure that you're growing?
So when I started this thing, after sports ended for me and I picked up motivational speaking, I was listening to motivational speakers like people listen to music, literally. So I would go to YouTube, and you can watch these motivational speech compilations, and I had them just on repeat in the car and my earphones every day, all the time. And I just absorbed it like a sponge. Like the Bible says that the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. So that's part of what I do. Not like right now, I'm so busy kind of cleaning up messes and kind of trying to build some infrastructure in this company that I'm not doing a lot of that as much as trying to like keep the thing running. Like I told you earlier, I turned off all my ads right now because I couldn't. And it sounds like weird to take a step back, but I couldn't get things to where they needed to be while everything was still growing. It's like, something's going right here and you're trying to build the foundation while it's getting higher and higher and higher. And it's just a recipe for disaster. Short term, cool. Make more money, like seem more successful, but long term, that will crumble you. The other part, and I'm sure people have heard like in this conversation, that I'm a Christian. And so I try to start my mornings in the Word. I'm in prayer. And the difference between when I do that and don't do that is exponential. And so I would encourage anybody who doesn't do that already to do so. At the very beginning, start reading the Psalms and the Proverbs. Start reading the beginning of the New Testament. But But the Bible says that I pray that you prosper as your soul prospers, and your soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. And if those things are out of whack, like if you don't have any peace and you're always anxious and you're always, just you feel awful, it's hard to be successful in business. It's hard to be successful in your relationships. It's hard to be successful in anything. But when you have peace, it's a lot easier to be successful in those things. And so I feel like that's practical stuff. But in a practical way, like starting in the word and starting in prayer really helps me a lot.
That's wonderful. I appreciate you giving us that behind the scenes.
Yes, of course.
So you might have heard me say at the beginning that this is my year of grace.
Awesome.
So my intention for that is to kind of, fuel my year with a specific purpose, and at the same time to have great conversations with my guests about my year of. So for you, what does grace look like in your life?
Man, so there's definitely been seasons in my life where grace was saving me from mistakes that I was making. This year, I feel like God has brought some opportunities to my life that there's no way in the world I could have done on my own. And things that have been the product of being faithful in what I've been entrusted with for years on end. But some of the people that I've had the chance to meet, the conversations that I've had, just some of the success that I've seen is the grace of God. And that's what I would say. It's been the empowering grace of God to have the opportunities to do things that I couldn't have even dreamed of. When I first started at 17, it's somewhere around here in my room, I had a piece of paper and it had some goals on it. And some of those goals I've been just checking off, from author stuff to speaking stuff. And it's been a real honor. I really feel like this is also a year where I've been graced to learn a lot about what doesn't work. I've been graced to learn a lot about, nothing's just going to be handed over to you. But I really think it's a building year. I'm seeing success, but a building year for 2020.
That's wonderful. I appreciate that.
Yes.
For people who are listening, who want to reach out to you, tell you how awesome you are, be a part of your world, join any of the programs that you have, how can they do that?
I mean, the best way is Instagram. My name is Kyle Dendy, just first name, last name, Kyle Dendy. That's Dendy. Connect me with there. That's where I post the most content, videos, photos, information about my courses. That's really honestly the best way to connect with me. I will be doing more YouTube soon, but right now all my focus is on cleaning up messes in this business and building this business, the infrastructure, so I can scale it to where I would like to take it in 2020. But Instagram is definitely the best place to connect with me.
Wonderful. And show notes for people who are on the go and weren't able to get that, tomrell.com/Kyle, tomrell.com/KYLE, tomrell.com/Kyle is where you'll find all of the show notes. Kyle, I just want to thank you so much for taking this leap of faith and doing this interview with me. You've really brought so much value to the people listening. I know there's parts I'm going to even listen to a couple of times. So I appreciate that.
Hey, it's a real honor. I really do enjoy, having cool conversations like this with people. So hope it's blessed to people. And if they actually, it's one thing to get inspired, but actually go and run with it. So I hope, to hear a year from now, somebody listened to this and did something with it. So even one person like that is more than a million just listening. So
there you go. So our closing ritual is for you to share an invitation with those listening. So what's your invitation for them to do, to become, to consider, to think about? What's your invitation?
Honestly, I'm going to say that it's what I mentioned at the end. And that's that if you don't already have a practice of getting in the word and in prayer, try it and see how much more peace you have. See how much more successful that makes you in these other endeavors that you're doing, your businesses, your relationships. We're living in an age where people don't have a lot of peace. And I'm not saying anxiety and things like that is just a one button cure at all. But try getting in the word. That's what I would really encourage somebody with, more than I would say, go buy my program, buy my book, anything like that. That's what I would encourage them with.
I appreciate that. Thank you once again, Kyle. This has been awesome.
Hey, I've enjoyed it so much, and I hope to talk again soon.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
And to all of those listening, as always, we're wishing you peace, and blessings. Thank you.
One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.